and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, and everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
All right, welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Kevin is not here. He is currently directing Vancouver traffic to wherever it needs to go. We're hoping to have Chris, but he's in Revelstoke and having Wi-Fi issues. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure where Devin is, but I am Sean, and I'm joined by Tyler. How are you doing, Tyler?
Hey, Sean, and hello, everybody. Yes, it's OG night here at the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Missing our pals that you just mentioned there, Kevin, Chris, and Devin. And then hello to you guys wherever you are. Chris, join us soon, please. We need you. We need to help. Wait, we have the traffic reference here that Sean brought up about Kevin and his I guess we can call it day job now, but we need as many hands on deck to keep this one between the lines in wintry conditions.
Yeah, we need someone to help us not be Vancouver drivers in the snow.
Oh boy.
But yeah, we've got lots to talk about this episode.
Lots of current news too.
Yeah, the Rick Dollywall bombshell that got dropped today in Canucks land, with the Canucks putting forth another contract offer to the Bo Horvat camp, and it was rejected. And it sounds like the Canucks are down the path of trading their captain. So at this point, I guess the question is now, is this an inevitability now, or is this more continuing playing the game and hoping that Horvat's camp comes back and they can find a way to make a deal contract wise with Bo Horvat?
Yeah, that was my first thought on this, was how final is final offer? What does that really mean, right? Now the Canucks don't have to make a trade until the trade deadline. So there is still some time to get the two sides onto some common ground there. But it just, from all the different reporting that's been out there, it doesn't seem like they're going to get there, does it?
I don't know. I thought everyone thought that the Horvat deal was going to be the easier one, and then they ended up doing Miller first, and that came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. So with a lot of these, whenever you're talking about contracts and negotiations, regardless of what you're trying to do, but at this point, all it takes is one phone call. Like, all of a sudden, the Horvat camp gives them a call and gives them an offer that they can work with better, and then that changes the tone. But with everything, the fact that they did chose to sign Miller first, and the fact that this team is wallowing in mediocrity this year, where they can they've strung together a bunch of wins and then can't seem to get into the playoffs and put together enough of a good run to make it feel like they're building something, for at least for this season.
Yeah.
I do wonder if Bo Horvat is thinking of more just seeing what's out there now.
Well, and a lot's changed since Bo came in, right? I mean, the general manager that drafted him was Mike Gillis. We're now to 2 different management regimes later since then. It was the bubble playoffs, yes, but he had a great showing there. Had been part of a previous playoff experience with the Canucks. I mean, he's looking at it now like this is my chance to get a big deal, and he's looking at his track record with the Canucks as a pretty good track record. And they're not, and then they threw a bunch of money at the guy that isn't the captain, wasn't a draft pick. And I think in the opinion of most fans these days, not as complete a player as Bo Horvat is. And is he feeling slighted? It's hard to blame him for feeling that way, would he? Would you?
Yeah,
That's kind of what it's gotten to, and I guess this is so. I mean, it makes me sad because I really like Bo as a, the first piece in this new era coming out of the previous, like that whole circa 2010-11 squad and the Sedins and that core, and then Bo was the first piece of what was supposed to be the next generation, and now it looks like he's going to be leaving, and they've got pretty much nothing to show for it. I mean, a couple of playoff appearances.
Yeah, but I think when you look at I'll bring up the dreaded R word and rebuild.
Yeah.
You look at most rebuilds, and they go through multiple iterations of that.
Yes.
How many did the Oilers go through before?
I was just gonna say, like they're now considered by most people to be a legit contender, and it felt like what 7 or 8 rebuilds there.
Yeah. And then even look at Colorado too. Coming out of that, out of the Sakic era, well, the Sakic player era, you had Duchesne and Ryan O'Reilly. Those were the 2 that they were supposed to build around.
Yeah.
Both are gone.
Yeah.
And now they're building around other players now. So include and that's the thing with the Canucks is if they can. The big thing right now, I think what they need to be looking at is how can they build around Elias Pettersson and give him the willingness to stay long term.
Yeah.
Because if they can do that and they can build around him, especially the way he's playing this year, I think that's probably what we're looking at. And if we're going to compare them, even though I don't know if it's a fair comparison between the Canucks and the Avs right now. I just mentioned Duchesne and O'Reilly, and who were the 2 big names that the Canucks were wanting to build around on the youth side right off the bat. We mentioned Horvat, and the other one's Brock Besser.
Yeah,
and it looks like both of them might be on their way out. Yeah. So it's. At least one of them, I think, will be. I don't think we see both of them stay with this team past the trade deadline.
And then now, as far as and I know I've balked at the use of the phrase "consumer confidence" in the past on this show, but now that kind of becomes something that's part of the discussion now too. Is do the fans have much faith in this management group to now navigate this next phase of having to move a core player and a captain and get a good return? And I think the fans can be forgiven for not having a lot of faith in that. And if that's if it kind of goes the way we've seen over the last couple of management regimes, then we're back into wondering how involved ownership is.
Yeah, I feel like there is a lot of baggage within this fan base, and I don't think if you're gonna take the ownership factor out, I really do think this management group has the ability and to navigate this properly. But reality comes in, and you throw that ownership wild card in there, and you don't know. And that's where the baggage from this from the Canucks fan base comes from, is that you have too many. There's too many, at least whispers out there, in instances where you go, I wonder, whether or not, the Aquilini family is meddling too much.
And Francesco's made it no secret on Twitter in the past how much he liked the JT JT Miller acquisition when it occurred that first year, defending it, kind of ripping the media for criticizing it because JT was playing so well. And then, of course, last year he puts up the 99 points, and that sells, right? So if you're the owner, it looks like you want this deal. You want to keep this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's hard for me to sit here and think that wasn't something that, was being pushed for, at least with ownership involvement.
Yeah, I don't know what, at least the JT Miller acquisition, when there was a lot of questions about that, I think it's been proven that I think that still was a good decision.
Yeah.
It's just I think the wart that could appear on this management group will be prioritizing Miller's contract over Horvat's.
Yeah, and if it's true that this group looked to move him in the offseason and would gauge the market and what kind of return offers there'd be out there for JT Miller, and there wasn't anything good, like, what were the other teams seeing? And is it evident now that those defensive flaws are perhaps areas that we as Canuck fans and perhaps people within the organization were overlooking because of that offensive output and because of his flair? And there's a certain level of excitement that comes with watching JT Miller when you're getting the good JT Miller.
Yeah, we don't really know what was out there, and I think that was going to be a franchise defining move.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if the management team got gun shy.
Yeah.
I think they probably have learned from that. And I think there's one thing we talk about development of players and all that. There's also development of coaches and management too. And they need to be able to learn from all the experiences and their mistakes from the past. And what happens here with Bo Horvat will definitely show whether or not, they'll show whether or not this management team has learned from what they went through last season with JT Miller. Because I think, at least from my perspective,
Oh, looks like we have perhaps lost Sean. I don't know if he's coming back or if this is even on the air still, but we'll give this a second here and hopefully we'll get Sean back. But unexpected technical glitch.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had a little
there
bit
you
of
are.
a connection error there.
Yeah, we got you back. We got you. We're back. We're back.
Yeah.
I was having to add limit there for a few seconds on my own there. But anyways, we got you back, Sean. Yes. Good.
Yeah, so I think what I was saying is that what I was saying is, I think if this management team was to go back in time, I think they would probably move Miller before the deadline. I think it would make more sense long term, cap wise and everything, because that's a big thing too. It's no longer about just talent assessment and being able to bring in good players, which I think this management team's done a really good job of, at least short from what we've seen so far in a small sample size, a short term. But you look at Mikheyev's, I think the Canucks need more players like Ilya Mikheyev, straightforward, hard forecheckers. Dakota Joshua fits that mold. Getting Ethan Bear for a really good trade was smart. And then you've got Niels Aman.
Aman, yeah.
And
the other thing too is there's been less reluctance from this group to demote people. Hoglander and more recently now Podkolzin going down to the AHL. Kind of felt like with the previous group there was reluctance to send certain younger players down when they needed that.
Yeah, I think Hoglander's was more of a paper move.
Yeah.
At the time, but the Podkolzin one was definitely something that I think surprised a lot of us.
Yeah.
but he wasn't playing, and now he's playing lots down with the Abbotsford Canucks, which is fantastic. I think they were a little bit late on doing that with Jack Rathbone, but yeah, I think that we are seeing more willingness to focus more on player development as opposed to just winning, which I think is a huge step in the right direction for the Canucks.
And now I know they won't get credit for this from most fans and media because this is Vancouver and it's very impatient, and there's got to be something happening every day to drive the news cycle, and they will, whether we're rebuilding or not rebuilding or do something is always seemingly the message, right? But this management group seemingly is resisting media pressure to knee-jerk decision make and to make bad deals. Now, yes, we've talked about the JT Miller signing perhaps being a bad deal, but I don't feel like this management team is constantly making decisions to try and save its own skin. They're taking the patient approach. They're taking a lot of heat because of that. A lot of inaction. Looks like another season's going to go down by the wayside. But if they really want to do more of a whatever R word you call it, retool or rebuild, it's got to be more than just a cosmetic change, right? It's got to be like I've talked about last week, the structural renovation here. Big pieces moving. Trading Horvat, if that were to occur, obviously will be the beginning of that. Then we're going to find out really what the R whatever ends up being. But it's probably going to be some of the biggest changes for the Canucks here in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and I think we all agree. I think it's a little over. I think it's over the way this management team has handled it is very patient, and I think they deserve credit for that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because this isn't something that you can rush. If you jump in and just make trades for the sake of making trades, just because the fan base is screaming for change, you're going to end up making more mistakes than.
That was the demise of Peter Chiarelli in Edmonton. I mean, at the time, he was the most active manager, and it would just became subtraction by subtraction until he was fired. And I think there was a little bit of that with Jim Benning. Pretty active those last couple off seasons.
He was, yeah, and then you can go back and use Elliot Friedman's favorite acronym for the Vancouver and VCR and rewind to many different trades there.
You had to get that in. Yes, it's true though. It's a market that does a lot of relitigating the past. I mean, we're kind of doing that here right now in some respects, but Elliot is VCR. Van Elliot.
Because there's another universe out there where that Benning didn't make that OEL Garland trade. They're out of there. Ericsson's off the books this season. Beagle's off the books this season. Roussel's off the books this season. They don't have OEL $7+ million on the book. They don't have Garland at 4 point something on the book. This team would look a lot different. And even if we're dealing with the same in that same universe, we're dealing with the same management group, we're probably looking at both Miller and Horvat being signed. So it's tough. I think this management team is in a very tough spot because they know they need to make a move, but it needs to be the right move. It can't just because if you make a move and you sell Horvat and you don't get a good return for him, that sets the team back even more so.
Yeah, well, both on paper, but I think even beyond that, just this is this transaction is kind of like Joe Sakic with Matt Duchene, right? Like it's a very critical tone setting directional move, right? Like it's more than just the names and pieces involved. It's more of a statement on the attitude that you have as an organization and what type of team you want to have going forward. There's a lot at stake in making this kind of a deal, And that's, certainly makes me a little bit nervous to see how that's going to go because, if you don't get the right deal, yes, there's the setback. But also, if they don't get the right deal, do they even make a deal at all? And then do they just stick with Horvat and try to make a run at the playoffs and then see what happens from there? Oh man, this is there's not a lot of time here left. I mean, like I said, there is some time to get a deal accomplished here, but
the one thing is I don't think that
buckle up.
I don't think we'll see them ride it out. I think there will be a decision made either way, whether he signs a new contract or he'll be dealt. They know they can't lose him for nothing.
Yeah.
Rutherford, going back to last season, has said that.
Yeah.
Just flat
out. We
know
that there is a market out there. It's not like there's nobody interested, but or only interested for a 5th round draft pick or something absurd like that. But it's whatever deal ends up getting done. I would be willing to put some money on the fact that more than 50% of the fan base will be underwhelmed by the return.
and if with that in mind too, I'm going to bring back a name that we talked about before in Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah.
When you got traded from Buffalo to St. Louis.
Yeah.
That deal helped St. Louis win a cup, and everyone thought that St. Louis robbed Buffalo in that deal.
Yeah.
But look at Tage Thompson now.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. So there also needs to be patience, knowing that it's going to be 3, 4, 5 years down the road before we know how the Canucks have done with that trade.
Yeah. And I mean, nobody can get, with all due respect to Jim Benning's speaking abilities in public, I don't think that public messaging can get much worse than what it was when he was the general manager. But as far as, trying to preach the patience and really sell the fans on this being the right move going forward and directional change, I'm not, how much stock does Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin have with fans right now? They're going to be in tough to convince people that they've got the right direction identified and that they're going to stick to their guns and make that move. Maybe I was just being a silly optimist, as I often am, hoping that there was going to be some way to re-sign Horvat. Again, guess you kind of get attached to certain players after a while. So it's and we haven't had a lot of time to stew on this today. This came out from Dollywall today, this news about a final offer being rejected. So it's it's a bummer. I'm having some trouble coming up with the words. It was like the day that Chris Tanev left.
Yeah.
And it was a few, I think it was Markey and Tanev. I think there was all Tanev in particular, but I remember we came on here and we were just like, man, that's a tough day today.
I think at that point we all expected Markstrom gone. That's what was the scuttlebutt. Canucks had Demko waiting in the wings, so it made sense. It was them not being them letting Tanev go.
Yeah.
That just got really hurt. And then you look at last year as well. Buffalo again, patiently waited out the Jack Eichel saga, and got Alex Tuch, Peyton Krebs, a 1st-round pick, and a conditional 2nd-round pick.
Yeah.
I don't think we see Horvat get that much, but I do think we will see a 3-piece trade. I don't think you'll see as developed of a player as Alex Tuch being involved. I think you will see a prospect of the likes of a Peyton Krebs though, and I think you will see a 1st.
Yeah, that I think I could be all right with that.
And ideally, if one of those players could be a defenseman who can play on the right side, that would be huge for the Canucks, because that's a massive need. And then, as well as if you trade Horvat, then that opens up a hole down the middle as well, because unless JT Miller can solidify his game when he plays center and doesn't have to be spectacular defensively, but can be just serviceable and then still put up points and make his line mates better,
No.
which he has done.
Well, you laid it
in the
out. I mean,
past.
if you look at like the whole picture, and you add to defense, and yes, you subtract at center, but if there's a net gain there in terms of improved defensive play, then okay, that's in theory a good deal.
Yeah, and you look at the practice lines from yesterday. Looks like Petey was on a maintenance day or just wasn't practicing. So it was Mikheyev, Dries.
They were saying he wasn't feeling very well or something. So
yeah, the Canucks don't play till Wednesday, so he's got time to recover. But I feel like Dries was in his spot with the Mikheyev and Kuzmenko, which is a line that we've seen it work.
Yeah.
Then you had Miller back in the middle with Joshua and Besser, which is very interesting because that would be a very strong line, like physically strong line, a line that I would hope would be playing below the dots more often than not.
Yeah.
Because I think when Miller gets into trouble is when he just starts thinking east-west too much.
Oh,
he starts looking for those cross-ice passes, those absolutely just moronic, brain cramp drop passes that he does. If Besser and Joshua can drag his play down under and below the dots, that's going to go a long way to helping make him less of a liability.
I mean, I don't know enough about his career prior to being a Vancouver Canuck to really assess whether, something's changed recently. But if the guy has come through, the professional ranks as playing a risk reward type of game, and he's just going to live by the sword, die by the sword, I don't expect big changes. Although maybe putting him in the middle of the ice could be one way to get those changes. As we say hello to Chris.
Hello,
Chris, you're here.
Can you guys hear me properly? Because am not only down in because I'm down in the business center.
It's not a statement.
So I'm in a public hallway, but I'm also using new headphones that I just got last weekend. So
was that an early Christmas gift or what?
For myself, yes.
Yeah. Okay. You had a chance to give Hannah the credit here, but no.
Oh, she has other stuff on my wish list, but I recently got a Pixel 7, so I wanted to get the Pixel buds that go with them.
Just flex a little more, Chris. Boy.
Chris,
which hotel you staying at there in Revelstoke?
The Ramada.
Okay, yeah, it looks like you got it
right on the highway, right next to the subway.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty sure when I just went there 2 summers ago without a reservation ahead of time, it wasn't a Ramada. It was something else. It was a motel, I think. So just curious if it might be the same place, but it's not. Anyways, we're on a tangent. We were talking about JT Miller, talking about the some of the head scratching puck handling decisions. Sean, of course, has been with us in the group chat constantly on his frustrations with puck management, and it really does start with JT Miller being a poor example at puck management. Trying to figure out sort of what the lineup could look like without Bo Horvat in it if he were to be traded, and it looks like he will be.
Yeah, especially after that play that ended up giving Minnesota the shorthanded goal. Yeah,
that's just insane.
Well, I think it was. Yeah, Boudreau got a little testy with the media after Saturday's game when they kept pressing about systems, and his quote was, "It's individual plays." I would think it's not a system play when you make a pass to another guy's stick for a breakaway. So, you have to make the smart plays, and because with the new lines with Miller centering, if this is what the lines go with next game, Miller centering Joshua and Miller, if they can just drag him below the dots and make him cycle and just grind out some goals, they're a big physical line. So being and a very good change of pace from the Mikheyev PD Kuzmenko line that looks like it will be back together. And then which leaves Höglander, Horvat, and Garland. So
again, Horvat being cycled with 2 random wingers.
I gotta just go back to that whole systems thing, and people say that Bruce is being testy with the media. I mean, what system has turning the puck over on the power play part of the system? I get the feeling from the coach that's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like just it feels like one of those questions that they had pre-prepared and wanted to ask, but it wasn't applicable to that game. But yeah, so yeah, Chris, with the dolly bomb from earlier today, do you think that this is the Horvat trade is inevitable at this point, or is this more playing the negotiating game?
Well, to be totally honest, because I work at the dam and there's no cell reception, I'm not sure which dolly bomb you're referencing.
The Canucks made one last offer to Horvat. It was
okay. Yeah, I do remember reading that. Yeah. So, if that's the best that the Canucks can do and it got rejected, what else? What other choice does the franchise have other than actively shopping him?
Yeah. Well, I think it might be just a little bit
pretty
of
cut and dry.
I think they are looking, seeing what's out there, but I don't think that this will be the last time that they talk contract. But I do think
it really depends on if it actually was their best offer.
Yeah. So I think the other part of that was Rick Dollywell reported that he believes that the offer was still under $8 million. So
yeah, you can't for a guy who's not only in the top 3 of scoring this season, but is also your captain, you can't give him an offer that's not your best paid player.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot. So
yes, you'll probably end up making more than him once his contract is up, which I believe is up for potential extension this next offseason. But yeah, at least for the remainder of this season, you can't not make Bo your most paid player to make this work.
Well, I mean, theoretically, the highest paid. Now we're talking like on AAV here, or just like total contract length and cost. Like whatever
I'm more
the case.
So talking to the cap hit.
Yeah, so I mean, theoretically, that would be the best player on the team. Well, I mean, Bo's playing like that right now, but over the length of time, it hasn't been that way. There's usually been 1 or 2 other guys, right?
Yeah. I'm not saying it like this clip that he's on is sustainable. It's more just that if you're actively negotiating and you're in the position of weakness that the franchise is, there's not much wiggle room. Like you kind of do have to give him the best offer possible.
Yeah, and I think that's where they put themselves in a bad spot by prioritizing and getting Miller's deal done before Bo Horvat, because right now, with the hindsight, you're looking at one player who's dragging this team and the other player who's one player that's dragging this team forward, and the other one that's a bit more like with the defensive liabilities is almost a bit of an anchor.
Yeah.
Even though he is still producing.
Well,
it's just unfortunate because last season it was almost the opposite way where it was Miller that was on a tear and Horvat kind of looked average.
Mm-hmm.
So in the current situation that it is, like, it's frustrating being like, well, it made the Miller sign look impulsive because it seemed like for most of the offseason they were saying the right things of prioritizing Horvat, and that Miller seemed to be on the back burner on the offseason. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and a month before training camp, then they finally had Miller done.
Mm-hmm.
And no one knew it was coming. Like, even caught Elliott by surprise, which is saying something.
That is, yeah. Well, it's been a very kind of like low energy podcast here. Being all bummed about this job, Bo Horvat news. I do want to go back. We had a few rather high event games. Canucks did somehow manage to win, particularly the one against Arizona and Montreal. And it's not. If I'm off base with this, you guys interrupt me. But it seems like there is a bit of a trend across the league for more of this fire wagon, run and gun style hockey. And I got to say, if I were a coach, I wouldn't be thrilled with this. And obviously, nobody's expecting it to be this way in the playoffs. But for casual fan entertainment, I don't think anybody's been shortchanged on that. It's just, what were you guys thinking during all that? I mean, it was just by the end, it was just exhausting.
Yeah, Halford and Bruff kind of jokingly said that the 80s are back.
Yeah. Well, there was the San Jose game as well. I forgot about the San Jose game. I mean, by the end of that, I mean, I was just I wasn't excited. It was over. I was just very relieved. It was just insanity what was going on in that overtime.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, definitely entertaining. But how can you have any sort of sustainable success as a team when those are the ways you're winning those games is by having one extra goal than the other guy, and there's very little defense on either end.
Yeah,
but it is going. We are seeing that the scoring is up around the league. I think what's happening is the offense is just ahead of the defense right now in the whole grand scheme of the evolution of hockey. We're seeing a lot of
but I think they want to see 5-3 games, not 7-6.
9-7. Seattle and
Oh,
I
think it was
9-8 or something.
9-8, yeah,
something.
So it's crazy. And then you got freaking Buffalo beating Columbus 9-4, 9-5 as well. But yeah, with the league trending younger because of contracts, and it's easier to, when you've got younger players that are on cheaper contracts, you're going to play them more because of that. You're seeing a lot more mistakes being made defensively. So it needs. So yeah, I think that's a lot of it too. And then you're seeing, I think the goaltending is a little bit behind as well. I think the shooters are a lot more educated and calculated with what their shot selection and how they're when they're shooting as well. So I think we'll see. I think this will be a trend we'll see for the next couple of years until we see maybe some of these younger players sort of mature and figure out how to play defense a little bit better, and then as well as the goaltending sort of catch up as well.
Yeah,
it's not going to stay this way forever.
Trend. There's definitely a new trend when the goaltending average for save against is at 905, not like the 915, 920 that has historically been the past decade.
Oh, I've been named goalies that are below the 900 mark.
Mm-hmm. And they've even looked at some of those even just 5-on-5, because I wondered if a lot of that was because of the more power plays and better power plays we're seeing from teams as well. But even on 5-on-5 save percentage, we're seeing a trend downward for goaltenders as well. So it's a little bit of everything, and I think we will see higher scoring games for the next couple of years until the defense systems and goaltending all sort of catch up there. Because the other big thing is, we're seeing a lot more the kids that are coming in these days are super skilled, and they especially offensively. And I don't know if the systems and knowing how to play defenses is as high a priority in the development of players as it used to be.
Yeah, because I think what a lot of the goaltenders seem to be struggling the most with is the cross-seam passes. So, as a goalie, I'm not sure how they can basically be better prepared for that. So I guess at that point, fall more on the defense.
Yeah, that's more defense and systems. You cannot, anytime you allow a cross-seam pass, especially we've seen the Canucks give up those cross-seam passes on the power play so much, it's just gonna, you're playing with fire, and you're gonna give up more goals than you're gonna see miraculous saves.
Well, they wanted scoring. They've got it. Everybody's been talking about we got to get more scoring. We got to get more scoring. Well, Canucks won 6-5, 7-6, and what was the other one? I mean, they were we were not shortchanged on goal scoring, and frankly, it did make it more entertaining in a season when it doesn't look like they're gonna do very much in the end.
I don't mean to constantly like name drop other podcasts, but with how much I drive for my work, I tend to listen to a lot of podcasts. But I remember Halford talking last week where he was like, in past seasons, I was like, yeah, they need to get more goals. But now that they're scoring all these goals, I'm like, not that much.
yeah, it's like, okay, guys, too much. Stop. Yeah.
But yeah, and even it was a 5-4 game, Flames and Leafs on Saturday too. Like and that you. The other thing is like some of the top goaltenders from last year are struggling. Mm-hmm. Shesterkin is struggling. Markstrom's struggling. Demko was struggling before he was injured. Like it's just you're seeing. Yeah, it's more. I think it definitely is a trend, and I think it's. Yeah, definitely a trend that's good for entertainment for sure, because no lead is safe anymore. the NHL's turning into the
Canucks
CFL.
That are getting, yeah, and the fact that it's not only the Canucks that are getting beaten by these multi-goal comebacks.
Speaking of Markstrom, seeing as we were on just on his case a moment ago here about having not the greatest season, I will tip the cap here against Montreal. Apparently, he was just absolutely standing on his head during a 4-minute penalty kill here to get the Flames and Canadiens game to a shootout. I don't know how that's turned out, but Marky coming through for the Flames there at least.
The Flames lost in the shootout.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, I really had a hell of a showing there for the guys in overtime. And then, do we want to work in our Darryl Sutter?
Yeah, might as well use that as a jumping off point to Darryl basically calling out the bias of officials being in Toronto.
And there was no fine or anything for that? Nothing came out about that?
Didn't see anything there. He did
sort of start tippy-toeing into the integrity of the officiating.
I feel like he did it in a subliminal enough way that I guess he was able to get away with it, because like he never outright said the reffing or officiating or anything like that. He just basically talked about like a Toronto bias.
It's just such a reach. Like two Canadian teams, you really feel like that's when you're going to play this card. I mean, if Calgary had I don't know if they really have like a current rival that's a U.S. team, but let's just say, for example, they had some big rivalry going with Colorado or something, and he were to trot this out in a big game later on in the season. Okay, I can understand that, but Calgary versus Toronto, and you're here bring out the whole, the officiating's not fair bit. I mean, I don't know, Darryl. I don't know about that one. And then he referenced how like it was like this when he was coaching the Blackhawks. Like that was like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. No, I think it was
Chicago
more
Chicago Stadium and Maple Leaf Gardens back then. For God's sakes, it was so long ago.
I honestly think it was a deflection from what he felt was not a great effort from the team.
Yeah,
and they, after losing to Columbus the night before, and then now this, I think it was more of he was he didn't want to say anything bad about his team. So he felt like he had to go out again, go after the officiating for some odd reason, because there was nothing in that game that made anyone really think that. And then like you bring up some stat, and then you look at the stats, and it's not like the Leafs are getting a massive amount of power plays when they're at home compared to the rest of the league. So I think it was just a poorly executed sort of Brian Burke tantrum, John Tortorella tantrum to
I'd use for it, but
yeah,
yeah,
to just to distract from the fact that they didn't really like the he didn't really like the effort that night.
Yeah, and that's
that's
fine.
Wording it.
That's fine. I was saying offline to you guys. Once in a while the coach will do. I've had coaches tell me this when I've been refereeing, minor hockey games. They'll say I got to show my team that I'm behind them. So it is, sometimes it just is what it is that way, where the coaches will play the card a little bit. Yes, he wasn't impressed with the effort, and he is trying to sort of change the channel on that. But at the same time, he's letting all of them know that he's still invested in this thing, and he wants this as badly as any of them should want this as well. And there's that whole getting behind the team bit. I don't know if it was the strongest situation to be bringing that out though.
No, not at all. And he already made some comments that were a little controversial before about the call up Matthew Phillips, where they have because Matthew Phillips is 5'9". He's not a big hockey player, and he's proven everyone wrong. Everyone said he wasn't big enough to play in the Dub. Everyone said he wasn't big enough to play pro hockey in the AHL, and he's lighting the AHL up. He needs a shot, and he needs a legit shot, not just playing with who was he practicing with, and then didn't actually play on the fourth line again in Columbus. I think it was supposed to be on the fourth line with like Lewis and Lucic or something like that. I'm like, that's not giving him a fair shake. But they put him on the line with Rajicka and Backlund on Saturday, and I'm not sure what the lineups were today. But if you're going to you have to give him an opportunity. And I think it's good for the Flames to finally do that, because he's, after last year and this year, he's definitely proven that he deserves that shot. Whether he is an actual NHL player, or he's just one of those quad A players that are really good in the AHL, but just for whatever reason don't quite have that X factor to make it in the NHL, that remains to be seen.
Also, you don't want to make the same mistake that they did with Marty St. Louis and let a small guy go just because they don't think he's going to fit into their system.
Yeah. Will be very. I'm going to be very interested to see. I fully expect Matthew Phillips to be sent back down to the Wranglers before Christmas, because that allows them to not have to worry about sending him back down through waivers. Because I believe I don't know the exact, but I believe it's about a month or around that you can have a player up and before having to put them through waivers to send them back down. So I think that will, unless he lights it up through the next, between now and when the Christmas break happens, or next few games, I do expect him to be sent back down, at least for asset management purposes.
So Milan Lucic being scratched, he's in the final year of his contract, so at least there's that. What ends up happening with Lucic and the Flames here, you guys think, now that move's been taken?
I think they will re-sign him. I've heard rumblings that they've got a contract in mind for him going into next season, and it's going to be like in the $1 million to $1.5 million range.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Which, if that's the case, that makes a lot more sense than the 5 point whatever they have on the cap for him this season. So we'll. But I think he's a fine fourth line player for them. He's a locker room staple. A lot, like he's an anchor in there. He sets the tone in the locker room, which is really good. But it's I do think
at the right price.
At the right price, yeah. In a hard cap league, having a fourth liner who makes that much on the cap is really tough to work around, and the Flames have done a good job of that. But going into next season, it'll really open up some stuff, some more cap for them when he's only making $1 million to $1.5 million versus like I said, the 5 point something. So it is what it is. They sent down Rooney as well, brought up Zahorna, who is I joked is that when they called it the 5'9" Matthew Phillips, they needed to balance it out with a Zahorna, who I think is like 6'6".
Yeah.
So
There you go.
and I think,
All right.
unfortunately, I think Chris's connection is struggling because I haven't seen
He's
his
looking
face move.
very frozen right now. very stiff.
Oh, now he's gone.
And he's gone. Oh, Chris.
But yeah, so I think it'll be trying to reconnect here.
He's
Chris,
back.
do we have you?
Okay, there you go. You're not looking so much like a statue.
I was able to still see and hear you guys. So when you guys said you couldn't hear me, I'm like, okay, well, just refresh then.
Boy, the gremlins are really ruining this technical production quality.
Not only that, but I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but the reason I adjusted my camera is because there's a group of guys that walked through the hallway behind me, and one guy did like the.
I saw that.
behind me.
Yeah, I did see that.
So yeah, technical issues are definitely plaguing me tonight.
Interaction with the random public is also an issue, apparently, at the Ramada Revelstoke.
Yeah.
Improve your Wi-Fi.
And then, and then now with it, we move on to I talked about the Christmas break with Matthew Phillips.
Yeah.
You know, another big staple with Christmas break, and hopefully we get it all this year. We don't just get we don't get teased only a few games, but we get a whole tournament with the World Juniors.
Yeah.
And Canada's camp started this week. The names to
the
watch.
team as well. Have they not?
Yeah. Yeah. I know they're
They
practicing.
released the roster.
Yeah.
So,
I gotta say, just from the outset here, I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like maybe it's because the World Cup's on and that's kind of like this bigger thing going on that's sort of taken my attention away. But not that there's been no hype for the World Juniors, but I just feel like it's sneaking up on me. Like it's not on the radar as hard as it normally is at this time of year. Am I off thinking that way?
I think you're on base there with again with the World Cup, and that's where a lot of the eyes are.
Yeah.
Once that's over, come this weekend, I think you'll see a nice transition from all the World Cup ads to all the World Junior ads on TSN.
Yes. And they will be relentless.
And I think it's partially sneaking up on you just because, like, with the whole Hockey Canada scandal this year, like, I'm pretty sure a lot of their pre-marketing is kind of toned down just because they're trying to maybe
that's
kind of
okay.
scoot
That's
under the
kind
radar.
of what I'm wondering too. Okay, so you guys are seeing those things as well. And God bless the folks in Halifax and Moncton for stepping up to host this thing, because I believe it was supposed to be in St. Petersburg, Russia, or somewhere in Russia, I believe is where this one was supposed to be.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Somebody correct me if I have that wrong, but
it was either that or it was it's either this one or the next one that was supposed to be.
Yeah, and
trying to remember the timeline on all this.
With the pandemic, a lot of these things have changed. But it's just so weird to be having this thing in Canada so many years in a row here. But
and I think there is a little bit of like one of the big rivalries is Canada Russia, and unfortunately we're not going to see that this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, with Team Canada, I totally missed the team announcement. So yeah, they got the forwards are Caden Bankier, Connor Bedard, Colton Dock, Zach Dean, Adam Fantilli, Nathan Gaucher, Dylan Genther, Zach Ostapchuk, Brendan Othman, Joshua Waugh, Reed Schaefer, Logan Stankoven, and Shane Wright. The defense is Nolan Allen, Brant Clark, Ethan Del Mastro, Tyson Hins, Kevin Korchinski, Jack Mathieu, Olin Zellweger, and then in net we got Benjamin Goodrow and Thomas Milic. One of the big changes is they're with this tournament is they're going back to the original sort of, I think it's 21 player roster. So it's 13 and 7, as opposed to having those extras as well as a third goalie. So. But we all know the big names to watch are you're going to have Shane Wright, who just got his first NHL goal against the Montreal Canadiens, which is fantastic
Of course,
theater.
Yes, it had to be that way.
Yeah, and then you have Dylan Genther being sent down there, down to the that tournament from the Arizona Coyotes. You've got Connor Bedard, who's going to be, he'll be the number one pick this year, this upcoming draft, as well as Adam Fantilli, who will be a top 5 pick this upcoming draft as well. And then on the blue line, you got Olin Zellweger, Kevin Korchinski, and Brant Clark, I think, are the headliners there. And I don't know much about the goaltending, unfortunately, but I believe Gaudreau was on the team a little in the summer, because we have to remember that happened.
Just clarified the hosting situation for this one. It was a couple of other Russian cities that were supposed to have this tournament, and the IIHF pulled the tournament from them. St. Petersburg was to host the Senior World Championship next spring.
Okay.
So Russia was actually getting 2 of these IIHF hockey events in the same year, and both have gone elsewhere. So yes, just for clarification there.
But yeah, and then that's with Hockey Canada. That's not the only thing that's been announced this week. They announced all the nominees for the next board for Hockey Canada. So this is the step after everyone resigned because of everything that happened with everything that happened with Hockey Canada, and including the name of Cassie Campbell Pascal, who's nominated to be on the board. So again, I think a lot of us are in the wait and see. You have to prove to us that you've changed mode with Hockey Canada here.
Yeah.
I think having Cassie Campbell Pascal on that board is a step in the right direction. But we still need to see them make moves going forward that will give us that confidence.
The thing with somebody like her, like Cassie's, like very, very high profile, big resume person, was so on that level, it makes sense as a great candidate. But would she want to attach herself to this? That I don't know if she's been on record as saying, hey, she'd take up the invitation if one was offered to her. So if somebody knows that, let me know. But
I believe
I'd have a little bit of reluctance about that.
Well, I believe if she's been put out there as a nominee, she has it. I believe everyone who has been put out there as a nominee would have accepted that nomination.
Okay.
Does that mean that she would basically have to walk away from her broadcasting duties then?
I don't know. I think that if I'm Hockey Canada, I don't want her to do that, because I think that's going to be a huge part in going forwards and in providing a message out to the public, making sure that there's a face out there that we
kind of an unofficial spokesperson, if you will.
Yeah. So I don't know what the details would be with that.
Well, that's a good start though. If that can all be worked out, Cassie's got as much credibility as anyone you could nominate for that position, and she has a lot of people that would believe in her abilities, and you just wish her the best now on making the next steps all unfold correctly and providing that leadership.
I didn't see the news release regarding this. Are there any other notable names besides Cassie?
I didn't. None that stood out to me, but I'm sure there are, that for people who are a little bit more in the know and people who are within, I guess, more like at the amateur side of hockey, because I think that's
more behind the scenes as opposed to public names. Yeah.
So, and then the other big, and then NHL wise, one of the big news is we've got the Board of Governors meetings going on right now. I believe LeBrun and Friedman both sort of reported it was a bit of a quiet day, nothing major being discussed, but the cap will be discussed tomorrow. There was rumors that we were going to see we're going to see the PA pay off the escrow debt that they had with the owners there, and we will see a big rise in the cap as early as next season. So I think the big question coming out of tomorrow will be whether or not that will be confirmed, or if they're going to stay a little more conservative and just continue to say it's just going to be $1 million. Because that'll be huge for not only the Canucks with the continuing Bo Horvat negotiations, but every other team in the league, because knowing whether or not you've got an extra $3.5 to $4 million to work with, it's going to be huge for trying to navigate the cap next season and beyond. Because if the cap goes up now, then you look at players like Elias Pettersson and anyone who has one more year left after this season, who are able to who would be looking for contract extensions this summer. That'll be big information for them to try and start building that whatever those extensions look like going forwards.
And to kind of piggyback off that, another, I guess, element of this is whether it's going to be like a kind of more of a staggered thing, where it's like $1 million and then 4 and then 5 the year after, or if it's going to be more like a balanced average where they do like a 3-3-3 sort of approach. So it'll be interesting, because depending on when they announce it and how big those numbers are, like that's going to alter teams' plans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the league has announced a big jump in a cap before, and it hasn't happened, and it's definitely handcuffed teams after they've made decisions based off of that. So I do wonder if we're going to see them stay a little more conservative and say we don't quite know yet.
Because it makes you wonder, like if they announce this week that it's going up by like $3 or $4 million next season, does that all of a sudden mean that the Canucks can send Bo a better offer now, right?
Mm-hmm. That's that would theoretically offer some glimmer of hope, but then they probably already have a decent projection in mind, I think.
Oh yeah, the internal projections are probably pretty well known, but it definitely will affect how teams strategize around their cap.
Because there was a story from Sportsnet in September from Elliot Friedman talking about how they're the potential cap rise after this upcoming season, because I think that we're likely just going to see the $1 million from this season to the 23-24 season, but the 24-25 season we'll see there's a potential to see $4 to $4.5 million, and then another $4 to $4.5 million rise in the next season after that. So, because then you also have the talk about if you're Petey or even Bo, honestly, those two on the Canucks and Kuzmenko as well. Do you go short term, especially with Kuzmenko and Pettersson? Do you bet on yourself and go short term so you can get that money? You can capitalize on having the cap being going up so much in a year or two, as opposed to signing just based off of projections and not as much certainty.
In more of a normal circumstance, I feel like PD would probably not be open to that, just because he already just signed a 3-year sort of bridge deal, if you will, to get to this point. But if there's a significant jump like that, it might actually be worth his while. The
thing about a salary cap increase, though, is I'm sure you all heard Frank Saravelli's reporting on Sportsnet 650 last week, as I think it was on Thursday, saying that apparently there's a team out there that's willing to offer Horvat a deal with an AAV beginning with 9. I mean, even if the cap goes up, I mean, is that would seem to be putting the Canucks out of the running, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Depends on if Bo wants to stay with the team, if it's at I guess an acceptable number, not an exceptional number.
Yeah, and as things stand today, it doesn't seem that way. Sadly.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about?
We got I know the comment's not on the screen. Dylan's going, woohoo, go Sens, go. I just wanted to acknowledge tonight Wade Redden, former Senator, went up in their Ring of Honor. Nice little ceremony there before the game. And the Sens go on to a big 3-0 win. I think Alex DeBrincat with a couple of goals there. So quite the night for the Senators over the Anaheim Ducks.
Yeah, Dylan's on the tank hard for Bedard train.
That's my assumption. I'm like, Dylan, what are you? Oh, and it's like, oh, right, yes, the tank thing. Yeah. I was all confused. But just in the pregame ceremony, they're just seeing all those old clips of the early 2000s battles of Ontario and
those are good.
Redden in here and Bob Cole and stuff, and all the time I think back to that era of hockey and just how awesome that was. And they had the little picture-in-picture of Wade with his wife and kids down in the watching the presentation, and certain moments with him scoring and the smile that comes up on his face watching those over again. That was pretty cool to see that. So I just wanted to give my stick tap to Wade Redden and the Senators for that tonight. That was awesome.
Yeah, that's and I'm glad they did that for him, because it's not his fault that he signed that big deal when he did. It became a little bit cumbersome, even though he was a warrior for that team.
He was.
And we talked about earlier. We talked about having to pick between Miller and Horvat for the Canucks. Back then, for the Sens, it was Char or Redden, and it's just, that was a tough choice. And unfortunately, I think injuries really caught up to Redden near the end there.
Yeah. Yeah, but you think back to that era of the Senators. I mean, they were President's Trophy team in 2003. I believe they reached Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final that year, and that he was part of that. He's part of all that. Chris Phillips, Jason Spetz, Daniel Alfredson. I mean, boy, you look back on all that now, and what a team that was. It's too bad they didn't. They could only get through the Stanley Cup final once, and against Dylan's Anaheim Ducks didn't do very much. But it was I guess as I'm getting older, that nostalgia becomes more important to me somehow.
Well, then that was sort of your wheelhouse as a hockey fan as well.
Yeah.
And you're in your teens,
just
and
moving into early adulthood there.
Yeah,
absolutely. Chris, anything else from you? Because you missed. Should give you the floor at the end here, because you didn't have as much time.
I mean, you guys already covered all the topics that I like. I feel like I don't have anything additional to add that you guys haven't already said.
Well, all right. We managed to keep this out of the ditch.
We did.
It didn't take us.
A couple of wobbles with technical.
we hit the shoulder, but we were okay.
The wheel was shaking there as we found the soft ground on the side of the road, but we kept it.
The rumble strip was covered, but we were able to correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think we'll be back. Kevin will be back at some point here this week. I'm thinking Thursday that will be a little bit more of a Flames-focused podcast, if possible. And then we'll be back. We'll probably back on Sundays next week. I'm not sure how good of a. I'm not sure how good in good condition I'll be up next Sunday, because I'll be hosting my Christmas party on that Saturday night. So we'll see what happens. But until next time, how do we follow everyone?
So I'm on Twitter at tnoble, TNOBLE.
I'm at Schneids on most social media.
You can follow me at BeardyConnect03 on Twitter. Kevin is KEVOLE on Twitter. Devin is at GordHowe09 on Twitter. You can follow us at Shifts and Pucks on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And we will talk to you later, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.